What's good, YouTube? Warstorm here, coming at you guys with another video today. Today I'll be talking a little bit about pendulum summoning in general, talking about the new Link monster we are getting in Extreme Forces. But I kind of want to go talk more about pendulum summoning in general, and it'll be more, I'm going to do more about this, kind of a more in-depth video on this in the future, but pendulums in general, I feel like when they were first announced, a lot of people, much like with every mechanic, it has its fair share of haters, it has its fair share of people that say it's broken. With pendulum summoning, it was a little bit different than newer mechanics because pendulum summoning is designed to work with other mechanics. A great example, because you can pendulum summon and then it can go into every kind of other summoning imaginable. And although we didn't have too many pendulum decks that, were top tier shit, so to speak, in terms of we had Cleaveforts, but while they were a pendulum deck, they were also kind of a more modernized tribute stun deck, at least in my opinion. Then you had Pepe and Pendulum Magicians. That's pretty much the only three Pendulum decks. And however, Konami felt as much, it is probably the most hated mechanic in terms of just straight up people just do hate the deck, the mechanic in general. And despite it having very little, very few, and how long Konami took to give us decent generic pendulum monsters. I mean, it was still Clash of Rebellion, which was well over a year into the mechanic's release, that we finally got Archfina-centric and Luster Pendulum. And then that kind of shows how careful Konami was with the mechanic in general. But pendulums received probably the biggest nerf of any, because every non-link based mechanic received a nerf. Pendulums, however, received an extra nerf on top of everything else by moving the pendulums to the spell and trap zone. Now, this probably, you could argue this is something that probably should have been the way it should have been in the first place, but it wasn't. And I personally feel like pendulums didn't do a whole lot really wrong enough to deserve an entire nerf to the mechanic in general. But pendulums, while outside of Pendulum Magicians, they haven't seen a whole lot of relevancy. We are going to get a new pendulum monster that's going to drastically alter pendulum in general, which is Heavy Metal Foes Electrum. Now, this card is coming out in Extreme Forces. I believe it's going to be a secret rare. We don't know for sure yet, but it is an incredible toolbox card for pendulums in general, and is really going to help them going forward. So, first off, it's very generic, so 2 pendulum monsters, so it's not that difficult to get this out before using your pendulum summon. There's multiple ways, such as using Astrograph Sorcerer and something like Wavering Eyes. If you're playing Metal Foes, it is a Metal Foe monster, so you can rescue Rabbit it out. It's really easy to get into, and it also really helps Metal Foes and brings them into the Link era and makes them playable again, because now you have a way to get your monsters out of your extra deck and not clump up and clear out your spell and trap zone a lot more efficiently, because this thing can pop face up cards as well. It also, being a Metal Foe name, does matter, because if you're playing Metal Foes, you just need this and another Metal Foe monster to make a play on your opponent's turn, which is ideally what you want to do with the deck. But anyways, its first effect is really strong. So when it's Link Summon, you can add one pendulum monster straight from your deck to your extra deck face up. So you can essentially put any toolbox any monster out of your deck and put it in your extra deck face up. Most of the time you'd probably want to do something like Astrograph Sorcerer, but you can also toolbox, like something I do in Pendulum Magicians is toolbox. I put out Dissolver into my extra deck, then use Oath Dragon to add it back. While Astrograph is generally going to be what you put in your extra deck with this thing's effect, you can toolbox a ton of other things that you could then add back with its second effect, which is whenever you can target other face-up card you control, destroy it, then one face-up pendulum monster gets added from your extra deck to your hand. So you can essentially search the same monster you just set in the top of your extra deck, add it back with this effect. Most of the time, you'd probably want to add back something like Astrograph Sorcerer, but this gives pendulums another way to resource back their extra deck, because this set also contains Pendulum Paradox, which means pendulums are going to be able to resource their extra deck again, which is really, really good. And its markers are also really nice, being bottom left, bottom right, which means you can be able to summon things from your extra deck relatively easily again. And on top of that, it has a draw effect, which whenever a pendulum card in your pendulum zone leaves the field, you draw a card. It's an incredible card. I don't know if Pendulum Magicians are going to be top tier, the best deck again with this card. I still think Magicians, while they are a very strong deck, they aren't. We all think, we assume Spirals are going to receive some kind of extra hit, barring a reprint of the archetype. I just don't, but Pendulums in general are going to get a massive buff from this, and Magicians as well. I know a lot of players are saying that they feel like the deck will be hit. However, I think we're going to get a whole nother. There's a reason why Konami obviously put Joker and Wisdom Eye and all these other cards back to 3 for a reason, to help Magicians transition into the Link era and to help sell their Pendulum Evolution. But hitting that deck doesn't really make a whole lot of sense when this has got you want to sell packs, you want to sell the set, and this card on its own will sell the set. So I think Magicians have probably got a whole nother format before even remotely. And I don't, as much as I love Magicians, I readily admit the deck is a good but not great deck. It's a consistent deck, but not something that's going to be able to compete in a power vacuum. As long as if there is a great deck running around, Magicians are just, they cannot set up good crazy turn 1 boards like a lot of the top tier decks can nowadays. But overall, I think this card is going to push Pendulums back into the spotlight again, and it's going to be interesting to see what kind of ways people want to get this thing out without using. Yeah, I think there's a lot of options out there besides the obvious, which is Astrograph Sorcerer. You have Bisactor Curtain Raiser has been a very popular tech in a lot of builds I've seen, because you can put in the Pendulum Zone, special summon it out, another normal summon, and bam, you've got this, and it allows you to get your whole engine going. Dark Worm's also another card as well. But overall, I'm really interested to see what this card changes for the Pendulum mechanic in general, because we are getting this. We do know we're getting this card, and this is going to drastically alter Pendulums in general and bring them back into the Link era and back into the spotlight, which is great in my opinion. So anyway, guys, that comes to the end of the video. What do you guys think of Pendulums in general? Do you think that their nerf was necessary? Let me know. And what do you guys think of Electrum? Do you think it's going to push Magicians into the next era? Let me know out in the comment section below. And as always, I thank you guys for watching. So, Storm signing out.